You know that feeling when you're trying to figure out what to eat and you're just completely lost? Yeah, you are not alone. There is a sea of conflicting advice out there, and it can feel almost impossible to know what actually works. Well, today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're going straight to the science to see how different diets really affect your body. So what's the real deal? Do you have to cut carbs? Should you get rid of fat? Or is the answer only eating during this tiny little window of time every day? It seems like everyone has an opinion, right? But today, we're tackling the one question that cuts through all of it. What does the evidence actually say is most effective for changing your body? All right, so to get our answers, we're not just looking at some random blog post or a new fad. No way. We are diving deep into the official position stand from the International Society of Sports Nutrition. I want you to think of this as the final word. It's what you get when you put a bunch of the world's top experts in a room and have them sift through all the research. This is about as close to fact as we can get. Okay, so the very first thing these experts establish, the absolute foundation for everything else, is what we can call the golden rule. It is the one single principle that underpins everything we are about to discuss, and that is energy balance. This is ground zero right here. If your number one goal is to lose fat, the science could not be clearer. You have to be in a caloric deficit. It really is that simple. You're just consuming fewer calories than your body is burning for energy. And this isn't a suggestion, it's not a theory, it's basically a law of physics for your body. It is the one and only switch that signals your body to start tapping into its stored fat for fuel. And you know what? That exact same law of physics works in reverse. If you're trying to build new muscle, what we call lean mass, you need a caloric surplus. It's the same deal, just flipped. You have to give your body more fuel than it needs for its daily tasks, because that extra energy is what's required to power the incredibly demanding process of building new muscle tissue. And the ISSN, they really hammer this point home. They state that any diet focused on fat loss is, and I quote, driven by a sustained caloric deficit. Now that wording is so important. It's not just a factor, it is the engine of the whole operation. It means that whether you're doing keto or paleo or some wild grapefruit diet, if it's actually working to help you lose fat, it's because one way or another, it got you to eat fewer calories. That's it. So now that we have that golden rule firmly in place, let's see how it completely shatters the great diet debate. This is where we get to wade into those endless diet wars that you see raging in every corner of the internet. The classic showdown, low carb versus low fat. This slide really gets to the heart of it. As you can see, they're just two different roads that lead to the exact same destination, a caloric deficit. One strategy limits carbs to get you there, the other limits fat. But here's the kicker. The science is crystal clear that when you match the total calories and, crucially, the protein between the two, it's a tie. Neither one is magically better than the other. They're just different tools for the same job. Okay, but what about the really popular one these days, intermittent fasting? There has to be some kind of metabolic magic happening when you squeeze all your eating into a tiny window, right? So does it live up to all that hype? Well, according to the world's experts, not really. Their review of all the research is pretty blunt. Intermittent fasting has, quote, no significant advantage over just your standard, everyday calorie cutting. It doesn't unlock some secret fat-burning superpower, it's just a scheduling tool. Look, if skipping breakfast helps you eat less food for the whole day, that's awesome. But if it just makes you want to eat the entire kitchen by lunchtime, it's probably not the right tool for you. Think of it as a useful wrench, not a magic wand. So, if the style of the diet, whether it's low carb or low fat or intermittent fasting, if that isn't the secret sauce, then what is? Well, that brings us to the one nutrient that kind of plays by its own set of rules, protein. Okay, so if energy balance is the king in this whole chess game of body composition, then I want you to think of protein as the queen. It is the most powerful, the most versatile piece on the board, and that's because it has this unique triple threat advantage that can completely shift the game in your favor. So here is why protein is such a game changer. First, it is just incredibly filling. We call this satiety. Meals that are rich in protein keep you feeling full and satisfied for way longer, which makes it a whole lot easier to stick to your calorie goals without feeling hungry all the time. Second, it has the highest thermic effect. Now that's just a fancy way of saying your body actually burns a ton of calories just processing and breaking down protein, way more than it does for carbs or fat. And third, and this one is huge, protein basically acts like a bodyguard for your muscles when you're in a deficit. It helps make sure that the weight you're losing is coming from fat, not from your hard-earned muscle. So, what's the magic number when it comes to protein? Well, the ISSN gets super specific here, especially for people who are resistance training. They recommend a range of 2.3 to 3.1 grams of protein per kilogram of your fat-free mass. Now, your fat-free mass is just everything in your body that isn't fat, so your muscles, bones, and organs. Using this measurement is way more precise than just using total body weight. And just notice how high that number is. It is way more than what's normally recommended for the general population, which just goes to show you how absolutely crucial it is for anyone who is serious about their physique.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Look at this. This is a concrete example from a study they cited. You have two groups, both in a calorie deficit, both training hard. The group eating a standard amount of protein, 1.2 grams per kilogram, they basically just held on to their muscle. But the other group, the one eating double that much protein, they didn't just preserve their muscle, they actually gained over a kilogram of it while losing fat at the same time. I mean, that is the power of protein in one simple chart.
All right, we have covered the iron law of energy balance. We've debunked the diet wars. We've highlighted the massive advantage of protein. But all of that brings us to the final and honestly the most important piece of this entire puzzle. What is it that actually makes any of this work, in the real world long term? This is it. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? After we've gone through all the science, all the expert consensus, what is the single best diet for changing your body? And the answer, straight from the mouths of the experts, is probably not what you expect. The long-term success of any diet, it all comes down to one single word: compliance, adherence. Can you stick to it? It's not about which diet is theoretically perfect on paper, it's about which diet you can actually live your life with. Think about it. A perfect plan that you quit after 2 weeks is infinitely worse than a good enough plan that you can actually follow for 2 years. So let's just boil this all down into a simple 3-step plan that's backed by all the evidence. Step 1, find a sustainable way to create a caloric deficit. Step 2, make protein the absolute star of your plate at every meal. And step 3, choose a style, low carb, low fat, whatever, an approach that actually fits your lifestyle and your preferences, because the best diet, the one that actually works, is the one you barely notice you're on. And that right there, that brings us to the ultimate takeaway from all of this. The search for the one best diet out there, it's a total wild goose chase. The science is telling us we need to change the question entirely. The question isn't, what's the best diet? The real question is, what's the best diet for me? And answering that question for yourself is the true secret to finally getting the results you want.